In today's Our Region's Business Online Extra, we're focusing on the impact of COVID-19 on the African American community in our region and a new fund created to help meet critical community needs. Mark Lewis is president and CEO of the POISE Foundation. Welcome. Good to see you, Mark.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having us on today.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, well, first off, for folks who don't know the POISE Foundation, a little bit of background on the organization, what you're all about.
Sure. So POISE Foundation, we're a community foundation based here in Pittsburgh. Started back in 1980, so we'll be turning 40 in December. So we've been here in the community for quite a long time. We are just that, a community foundation, so we manage endowed funds, do grants and scholarships to various organizations and individuals in the community. And our particular focus is the African American community. So most of our grant making goes to those organizations that either are African American led or that serve the African American community here in Allegheny County.
What are you seeing this time out? What's going on out there that really led to the effort to create this new fund?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, as it's gone around in the country, we've seen just the devastating impacts of the virus and what it's had on our communities. And as we've seen across the country, and no different than Pittsburgh, there's been a disproportionate impact on communities of color and here in Pittsburgh, especially the African American community. And so we've seen philanthropy and governmental efforts trying to obviously help as much as possible with the economic impacts the virus has had. But we also know that for a lot of our larger foundations, most of the organizations they're going to reach are larger community organizations, and rightfully so. What we saw was a need to also look at those smaller organizations, and when we compared our portfolios with some of the other foundations, we saw that there were several of our organizations that were not in the portfolios of some of the larger foundations. And so that got us thinking about how do we make sure that those smaller, especially Black-led organizations, aren't left out from both philanthropic funding, but also we found even with the CARES Act, a lot of our smaller businesses and small organizations either don't have the capacity or wherewithal to, one, be able to digest the information that's coming through that act and how best to apply for funding, or the capacity just to actually apply. So this fund is specifically looking at those smaller, in our case, Black-led organizations that have budgets under $600,000 who are providing critical needs to our community and seeing how can we best support them through this current effort.
So give me, for instance, what types of organizations in our community are we talking about that you're really interested in trying to help?
Yeah, what's unique is, I mean, obviously we work with a lot of different social service organizations. We're seeing a lot of organizations that either in the past have, worked to help provide basic needs, but we're also seeing organizations that have had to shift. And so maybe they've done a certain service in the past, but because of the emergency, now they're providing those core basic needs to our community. The other area that we're trying to focus on are faith-based and actual church and mosque. So we see that those are typically organizations that may not necessarily qualify for other foundation dollars, but have deep ties into the community. They know the residents very well. And so we're trying to reach out to those organizations to give them some funding to help them do what they need to do. And as we know, I know with my own church, and I'm the trustee of my church, obviously with services not happening, live services, our donations are down. And so, but again, we're still trying to support our community and our parishioners as much as possible. So if we can get help to those organizations, which is, again, is somewhat unique from a philanthropic view, then that'll make all the difference.
Yeah, you tend not to think of a church as a business that's got its own revenue issues in the context of all of this. I mean, are you concerned that some of these organizations that provide these critical services might not be able to survive this crisis without this kind of support?
Yeah, I think with this support, without this support, that's going to be a reality. I think reality is we're going to lose nonprofits, we're going to lose small businesses across the board. And again, in the African American community, I think we're going to get disproportionately hit. And what we see is a lot of our organizations and businesses don't always have the banking relationships, don't always have access to capital that they need. And so again, they're going to be hit the hardest. And so one thing we're trying to think about currently is just how do we get funding to these various organizations in the immediate. The other part of this is what does the economy look like coming out of our current environment. And so I think there could be tremendous opportunities, especially for small Black businesses to think differently. There are new demands that will arise out of our current environment, as well as a lot of different opportunities. And so one thing we need to think about is how do we position certain nonprofits and certain small businesses to think forward, take advantage of technology. I think, technology has been around for a while, but this current condition has really forced all of us to look at technology in a much broader way, but look at platforms in just a greater respect. And so how do we do things differently? Maybe it's the same service, but it's done on a different platform. And so we really need to think about what does that look like coming out of our current environment. And I think that's where philanthropy plays a pretty critical role.
If an organization meets your criteria, how do they find you? How do they apply? How do they get one of these grants?
Sure. So there are several ways. One, they can go to our website and they will find a link on how to apply. We're trying to blast this out in various press releases to the media, through social media. They're hearing this program, please go to our website. The application did go live earlier this week, and our first evaluation will be May 8th. And then we're trying to have weekly evaluations after that and approvals of applications with the money following a week later at the most.
So you are scrambling.
It'll be very quick.
All right. Mark Lewis from the POISE Foundation, congratulations on this effort, and I know it'll do a lot of good, so keep up the good work.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, once again, small Black-led organizations can apply for funding at poisefoundation.org. I'm Bill Flanagan, and that's today's Online Extra.